Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second session of R.O.C.U.S. online forum. My name is Jason Shi. I'm the advisor to National Policy Foundation. I'm also a former legislator pertaining to KMT. Today, I'm very honored to invite a very strong group of panelists to share with us a diverse viewpoint of the current status of the U.S.-Taiwan cooperation, and as well as some of the economic developments and potential indicators for the future developments. Let me begin by welcoming today's panelists. Joining here on site at the National Policy Foundation is Mr. Steve Lin.
Hello, Anthony. Hello, Kirk.
Hello.
Xiang is the Vice Chairman of National Policy Foundation. Also here with us, Dr. Steve Lin Tuja, Convener, Economy Finance Division, National Policy Foundation.
Hi, everyone.
Also with us today, Mr. R.O.C.U.S, former Chairman of NCHAM Taipei and Managing Director of BlackRock Capital, Taiwan.
Morning, everybody.
And joining us online, Mr. Kirk Young, Chairman and CEO of Kirkland Capital, also advisor to National Policy Foundation. Welcome.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
And also Mr. Anthony Kim, Research Manager and Editor of the Index of Economic Freedom, the Heritage Foundation. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And last but not the least, our legislator at large, Mr. Chen Yixin, also a member of our Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee at the Legislative Yuan. Can you hear us? Okay, we need to turn on your mic.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay, great. So today we will cover the major topics, including U.S. and Taiwan economic cooperation, mutual investment opportunities between U.S. and Taiwan, and U.S. and Taiwan innovative industry co-development. So let me begin by handing the microphone to Mr. Steve Lin, who will share his view on the U.S. and Taiwan innovative co-development.
Okay, so guys, first of all, welcome. I'm going to start talking about probably mostly on sort of the new emerging technology, and probably the most important is biotech. As people know, I'm sure Kirk can provide more insight information for us later. I mean, the U.S., especially Silicon Valley, has long been a source of innovation for Taiwan's technology industries. And in the past, we see most of the cooperation in semiconductor-related business, contract manufacturing, or internet application software. But recent years, we have seen more business opportunity for both sides in the area of artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, and autonomous driving, and most important of all, the biotech industry, which I was just talking about. And this is also the most pressing matter at this moment, because as the COVID-19 pandemic precipitates, there is a huge business opportunity for the U.S. in the area of vaccine joint development and joint production with Taiwan. I'm sure our legislator Charles here must have the same feeling, because he's being quarantined right now, so he cannot join us. He has to do a video conference. So the problem is that Taiwan's domestic pharmaceutical and biotech company have just started the phase 1 clinical trial for a viable COVID-19 vaccine. And these companies have faced, unfortunately, many difficulties. While the Taiwanese government so far has not been very active in terms of solving these problems and providing funding for these local companies. So, and also, unfortunately, that Taiwan is running out of the remdesivir and has to resort to something else less effective. That's pretty sad, actually. And the estimated arrival time for a viable vaccine developed by the local guys, by the local manufacturer, a biotech company, will probably be second quarter next year, or even later. And without a viable vaccine, Taiwan cannot reopen its borders, which will inevitably and seriously damages our economy, as Taiwan derives most of its GDP from international trade, cross-border investment, and tourism. And this will further weaken our strength amid rising geopolitical tension. Okay? So to provide a viable vaccine for Taiwan is not only a mega business opportunity for the United States, but it is also a matter of national security or a key to survival for Taiwan. After all, when facing the potential military aggression from mainland China, neither dead people nor sick people can operate these advanced weaponry we spend billions of dollars acquiring from the States. Okay. So the best way, I think, is for the United States, the U.S. pharmas, such as Moderna or even Johnson & Johnson, to authorize local production of these much-needed, to authorize these local production of these U.S. FDA approved vaccines to Taiwan's vaccine manufacturer to serve the much-needed local demand. Taiwan definitely has top-quality biotech engineers and production facilities to supply these vaccines to both Taiwan and other countries in need. Well, the U.S. Acting Secretary of Health and Human Services, Alex Azar, was in Taiwan for a historical visit about 2 weeks ago. And he talked about a possible cooperation between the U.S. and Taiwan in the area of COVID-19 vaccines. However, without giving any specifics or action plans. So, I hope Azar's visit is not just an episode in a popular international reality show, or, as I quote Mr. Dogpo, who is the former AIT director, he used a Chinese saying that much thunder, little rain, which means much ado about nothing to describe this visit. We definitely need more than just beautiful words to boost our morale. We need vaccine to boost our immune systems. So I really, really hope that the U.S. can truly work with Taiwan at this difficult time, actually the most difficult time that we're both facing, and provide us, the so-called U.S. ally, with the much-needed vaccines. I definitely believe this will certainly become a win-win situation for both the United States and Taiwan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, for your views. Next, we will have Dr. Steve Lin Tuja to share with us about his view on U.S.-Taiwan trade relations and FTA. Dr. Lin, please.
Thank you, Jason. My dear colleagues and friends, it is my great pleasure today to have this opportunity to share my point of view for the prospect for economic cooperation between Taiwan and the United States. In the long period of time, Taiwan and the U.S. are important trade partners for each other. For example, last year, the total amount export from Taiwan to U.S. is about 46 billion US dollars, which is about 14% of the total export of Taiwan. On the other hand, the import from the U.S. is 34 billion US dollars, which is about 12% of Taiwan's total import. Now, the U.S. is the number 2 trade partner for Taiwan, and Taiwan is the number 10 trade partner for the U.S. Moreover, the investment from the U.S. also counts an important share of Taiwan. The total investment from the U.S. to Taiwan during the past 60 years is about 24 billion US dollars, which is about 13% of total FDI inflow for Taiwan. The U.S. is now number 3 largest investment source for Taiwan. In the same period of time, the total investment from Taiwan to the U.S. is about 18 billion US dollars, which is about 12% of Taiwan's total FDI outflow. So, in recent years, more than 300 bilateral and multilateral FTAs have been signed around the world. So it means that we have very quick global economic integration has happened during the past 20 years. And Taiwan is a small open economy. We are highly dependent on international trade. So we have to participate in the global economic integration as much as possible. Since U.S. is one of the largest trade partners for Taiwan, both for trade and investment, so there's no doubt Taiwan has a high interest to sign an FTA with U.S. And I can assure you that Taiwan wants a high-quality FTA with the United States. For example, the FTA between Taiwan and New Zealand a couple years ago, we call that ANZTEC. It's a highly open FTA in which 99.9% of commodities are included. The ANZTEC is a very good example to show the determination of Taiwan to sign FTAs with other countries. In addition to commodity trade, Taiwan also wants to sign a service trade with United States too, so that both sides could also open service industry as well, including financial industry, logistic industry, medical industry, and so on. Since both Taiwan and United States are very open in service industry, so I believe it should have no difficulty for both sides to reach a high-quality service trade agreement as well. In fact, in addition to the U.S., Taiwan also is interested to sign FTA with other countries like Japan, Australia, and also we want to participate CPTPP and RCEP. And since U.S. has a significant influence, political influence in the Asian Pacific region, so it will be very helpful for Taiwan to sign FTAs with others and to participate CPTPP and RCEP if we could sign FTA with United States first. Now, we all facing a serious trade war between U.S. and mainland China. And some foreign firms in mainland China, including Taiwanese firm and U.S. firm, are now thinking to move out from China. We saw a serious so-called production chain shuffle. So when they go out, they try to choosing some Asian countries. So among those Asian countries, Taiwan could be one of the top choice for those firms who wish to move out from China. In fact, lots of Taiwanese have already shipped out some of their productions from mainland China and back to Taiwan during the past 2 years. We believe that Taiwan could also be a good substitute place for the U.S. firm too. And therefore, if there's an FTA between Taiwan and the U.S., it could provide a very good incentive for the U.S. firm to invest in Taiwan. In short, Taiwan and the U.S. are important trade partners for each other, and so is for the investment. Facing the serious trade war between U.S. and mainland China, Taiwan could play as a strategic partner for the U.S. Therefore, we believe that now is the best moment for Taiwan and U.S. to sign an FTA now. And we suggest both government to consider this possibility seriously. And Taiwan government should liberalize our economy in every aspect to show her determination to sign FTAs with the U.S. and other countries. This concludes my talk. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lin. Your viewpoints are very important and couldn't have come at a better timing. Next, I would like to have Mr. R.O.C.U.S, who actually had a quite extensive experience working with both U.S. and Taiwan governments and corporations, and he's done some research on the U.S.-Taiwan investments and as well as FTA-related issues. So he's here with us today. Let's welcome Leo.
Morning, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. I think what I heard from this morning's comments, Steve's and some of the other comments, as well as the first panel, is that there seems to be consensus in the room that we are at a critical stage for Taiwan. That seems echoed everywhere, due both to the geopolitical issues between the U.S. and China, and the supply chain shifts that's causing, and also the additional pressure that's putting on Taiwan. As we heard this morning, the fact that the U.S. and China aren't getting along indirectly puts a lot of pressure on Taiwan. The other thing that is on the top of everybody's mind is the impact of COVID. And Taiwan's very successful handling of COVID has really put it in the limelight, like it hasn't before in many, many years. And I think the question for Taiwan is, how do we use this opportunity to carry on? How does Taiwan's excellent handling of this situation and its status as global status be carried on in the future for the purpose of making sure that Taiwan remains relevant and stable? One of the things that I think Taiwan really should undertake is a sovereign wealth fund. Now, the concept in Taiwan has been developed in the past and discussed for 20 years. And it's even been looked at as recently as 2017. And the result of that was the Taishan Fund, which is a more development type of fund. But what I'm talking about is a fund that is internationally based, focused on Fortune 500 companies, focused on large cap companies that are relevant, and those that have a strategic significance to Taiwan. If Taiwan used its foreign reserves, and Taiwan has around the 5th largest foreign reserves in the world. Last November it was $480 billion, to invest in these type of companies. It would create the connectivity that Taiwan needs to be relevant. A lot of the initiatives the government has undertaken, and even some of the things that Steve mentioned, these FTA agreements are critical to Taiwan. However, they take a two-way communication, they take negotiation, which are things we should be doing, but they take time. If Taiwan set up a sovereign wealth fund and use the funds it has available to invest in these large companies, you have direct access to global financial companies that can benefit Taiwan in a few different ways. First of all, it would give Taiwan soft diplomacy. In other words, having worked in a number of large international companies, I know the boards of directors don't necessarily think of Taiwan. They're always focused on China. If you own a percentage of their company, even a small percent, and you have access to the board and you say, hey, you know, we're the Taiwan Sovereign Wealth Fund, we'd like you to invest in your company, you will get time with them. And they will start to think, hey, what is this Taiwan? What should we be doing with them? And at the same time, you have the opportunity to say to them, hey, for example, we have an opportunity, we have a high-tech park that might be suitable for your business. By just mentioning those things at these high levels, you really can attract capital into the country like no other way. With Taiwan's diminishing political clout, this kind of interconnectivity is so critical for Taiwan. The other benefit of a sovereign wealth fund is financial. With one of the most rapidly aging populations in the world, with no immigration, with pandemics like COVID coming up, although we did very well, with pension funds that are going bankrupt in Taiwan, we need more money. The returns that we've been getting from the central bank in Taiwan are not enough to keep up with what we need in the future. As you know from the experience of the Norway Fund and Temasek and countless other funds that are successfully run, they contribute to a country's bottom line in very significant ways. The way Taiwan has been investing in the past, its foreign reserves, is much too conservative. They're primarily in treasuries and in cash, and the returns we get aren't that transparent, but I can assure you they're lower than any institutional investor would accept. And I think given the challenges Taiwan faces in the future, I think it's very important that it consider broadening and diversifying its investment base to take advantage of that. So given the financial benefits you get, and also the political, the soft diplomacy you get from it playing in the global capital markets, to me this is a win-win situation. Doesn't mean we shouldn't continue in Taiwan to look at FTAs and all the other government reforms that we're trying to do. I think we can address that later on. But my main thing is to revisit the concept of a sovereign wealth fund and try to get Taiwan to broaden its horizon and consider that as an important way to maintain stability and relevance in the world, particularly at this very critical time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Leo, for sharing this very important opinion and suggestion. Kirk, you have covered the global tech industry, particularly Taiwan's high-tech sector. And after you heard our three panelists' views, I'd like to get some of your thoughts on the current status and some of the potential opportunities and challenges on the U.S. and Taiwan investments, and what you are seeing going forward. What are some of the potential ideas and innovations we can work on?
Okay, thank you, Jason. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. From technology perspective, I see more cooperation between U.S. and Taiwanese companies. As many of you know, U.S. and Taiwan have been working together for years, since 1980, from the outsourcing product. Start out with personal computers. U.S. companies like IBM, Dell, Compaq, to name a few, use Taiwan as an outsourcing partner. After that, we have Motorola with the mobile phone. Of course, today Apple is the largest customer for Taiwanese tech companies. Even though many companies move to China for cost reasons, the tech products made in China are still owned by the Taiwanese companies. So I see this cooperation to continue. However, in the last few years, I've seen some changes that could further strengthen the U.S. and Taiwan tech cooperation. For example, in China, it's getting more difficult to manufacture product in China because the RMB currency appreciation since 2010. So since then, like Dr. Lin kind of mentioned earlier, many Taiwanese companies move out of China to nearby countries like Vietnam, like Thailand, like Indonesia. But recently, because of the U.S.-China trade tensions, we are seeing even more difficult to make tech products in China because of the higher tariff. It costs more to ship tech products from China to U.S. Of course, also because of the U.S. tech restriction on Chinese companies like Huawei, like ZTE, maybe TikTok and WeChat. So going forward, from tech perspective, globally, I see one world, two systems. What does that mean? I think that going forward, the two systems, including China and non-China systems. So for Chinese market, you're going to see China-made product for the Chinese market using Chinese technology, Chinese standards, because it will be a closed market. But for outside of China, I see Taiwanese play a critical role making the products, especially for U.S. customers like Apple, like HP, for example. So I'm seeing two clear trends going forward for Taiwan and U.S. Number one, I'm seeing more Taiwanese companies making product in the U.S. It's getting more difficult to make in China, and Taiwanese companies want to serve U.S. market locally, almost like the car companies with Toyota, Honda, Mercedes making cars in the U.S. for the U.S. market. So I see more Taiwanese companies make product in the U.S. for the U.S. market, especially because the U.S. government, including President Trump, wants to move the manufacturing back to U.S. So the trend has happening for a few years. We'll know about Foxconn or Home High. They set out a plant in Wisconsin. Like Xiang mentioned earlier, I'm in Phoenix right now. I live right across from Intel's fab. TSMC will most likely also come to Phoenix to set up a manufacturing fab. And the importance of that is not only for customer, it's not for cost reasons, but more for technology, also national security reasons. Many of the high-end military products, like drone, for example, needs high-end, high-tech semiconductor products. So the fact TSMC coming to US, I think that's very significant for both US and Taiwan to work together. So bottom line, I see more Taiwanese companies coming to US. The second trend, on the other hand, I see more U.S. company going to Taiwan to set up facilities. For example, companies like Google have the largest cloud facility in Taiwan, Facebook, Amazon, even Microsoft. Those companies prefer to have their servers, their data center in Taiwan rather than China. Those US tech companies have a lot of concern putting the data in China. Taiwan is a perfect place, close to China, but much more secure. In addition, US tech companies feel much more comfortable sharing intellectual properties with Taiwanese counterparts. That's why I found that going forward, because getting more difficult to make product in China, because of the US-China trade tensions, I see more cooperations for US and Taiwan to work together from technology, from manufacturing perspective. Finally, I'd like to echo what Dr. Lin said earlier about the trade agreements. I would hope that it's very important for US and Taiwan to have some type of FTA agreement. I'm in the US right now, it almost reminds me of the USMCA. US work closely with Canada and Mexico in a trade agreement. If Taiwan can have similar type of treatment, working freely with US from carrier perspective, also including immigration, travel, working visa, to have Taiwan become an integral part of US tech supply chain, I think that'll be a win-win situation for both US and Taiwan going forward. So I'm quite optimistic on the future relationship of the two governments.
Well, thank you, Kirk. I think your viewpoint really reflects on some of the potential opportunities Taiwan and US can pursue collectively, and I think our government should take important advice from what you just said. And next, I would like to have Mr. Anthony Kim to share your viewpoint, especially from the Washington, D.C., and also from your work conducted at the think tank. So please.
Thank you, Jason. Good morning to my fellow speakers and gentlemen in Taiwan. I'm delighted to be here with you all. Here in Washington, we are going through the last phase of summer, but at the same time, we're getting into another interesting, entertaining political season. So the timing of this event cannot be better because, quite frankly, this is going to be more strategic and realistic. I mean, it's one thing that we get together to talk about what we can do, the status of U.S.-Taiwan, Taiwan-U.S. relationship, but what matters is what kind of real action plan in short, medium, long term we can come up with this kind of conference. I happen to be with the Harris Foundation for about 20 years, and throughout those years, I had many opportunities to visit Taiwan. But unfortunately, not yet. I haven't visited your office, National Policy Foundation. So perhaps next time we'll get together again in due course to talk about real matters we're going to talk about. Now, having said it, I want to point out three things because it's one thing that what kind of specific dimensions, the angles we can operate on, either sovereign wealth fund, technology. I mean, bottom line, I agree. I reflect those sentiments. Let's take a half step back and see where we are. We meaning the United States and Taiwan. Number one, nobody expected this. We're under very, very strange circumstance. It's even unacceptable. It's been going on since January, February, however you frame this, it's unacceptable. And we are going through this turbulence. And Taiwan, United States, we're going to get through this turbulence together. That's my number one point. And perhaps in a very strange way, because of this unexpected, unacceptable situation, the relationship between Taiwan and the United States has been stronger. It hasn't been better than, it has been better and better every day, every month basis. Now, number two, public health policy is good economic policy. So good health policy is good economic policy. Taiwan has that. Because you had a capacity to provide and execute good public health policy, you've been able to operate, function your good, dynamic economic platform, despite the health challenges. Now, that goes beyond just health policy and economic policy. That goes into strategic foreign policy. I think that's where Taiwan is nowadays. Not anymore. Taiwan is a small country. Taiwan has been punching above its weight. Your country name recognition, your capacity in terms of being innovative, in terms of being entrepreneurial, it's been now widely recognized, as you can tell from Taipei. Now, many more people are interested in doing things with Taiwan, getting to know more about Taiwan. So I see a lot more opportunities than challenges. This is really time to come up with a practical, strategic roadmap. You know, we play chess, we play Go. It's a process. You know, we cannot come up with a one silver bullet, one industry, one sector. But United States and Taiwan, together, we've been building, cultivating, growing common platform. And this time, going forward, as we get into 2021 soon, I think this is time to really fasten our seatbelt and getting into some specifics. And that comes down to my last point. As reflected by some of panelists' comments early, U.S., Taiwan, U.S., FTA. Well, I want to see it. I want to see it happening, and I have no doubt it will take place in due course. But as you know, it's not like, okay, let's do it by next week, next month, next year. Again, this is a process. This happens to be political as well as economic process. Now here's the good news. Now, it's not anymore just econ political discussion. It's really geostrategic, Indo-Pacific, greater supply chain, remaking of the global tech map. You name it, this has everything. My main bottom line is this. We have opportunity. We have this process where we can together compare notes and unpack our strategic approach and vision together. So I want to say FTA, that's not the ultimate final single engine solution. This is one of the dimensions where we should work on United States and Taiwan in terms of elevating and institutionalizing our vital economic diplomacy together. So I like the idea of sovereign wealth fund, for example. I like the idea of this technology cooperation idea. That has to be part of this greater picture, along with the FTA. FTA can expedite, facilitate, but again, I want to emphasize that may not be the final silver bullet solution. But through this process, I think we can create greater momentum and we can be a lot more strategic. So let me stop right there, and then as we go, let's do some more Q&As.
Well, thank you, Anthony. And your viewpoints are very practical and very important for us on both sides. And next, I would like to have our friend and who is now in quarantine and joining us online, Mr. Chen Yixin, who is currently a legislator and a member of Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. From his viewpoints, what are some of the potential opportunities and some of the solutions facing U.S. and Taiwan relationships? Here, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Good morning, everyone. Since I only have 5 minutes, please allow me to get straight to the point. My point is, the new southbound policy that President Tsai Ing-wen adopted in her first presidency is a failure. In terms of replacing Chinese export markets by new markets in Southeast Asia, South Asia, Australia, and New Zealand, this failure must be corrected before Taiwan can reduce its economic reliance on mainland China, as well as to increase its economic security and more diversified global portfolio for Taiwan and its exports. The way I would propose here to correct this failure is to resume the liberalization reform that the KMT government designed under President Ma Ying-jeou's second presidency. Furthermore, the new liberalization reform should be guided by a new economic strategy that will stress on the U.S. markets, particularly in the East Coast markets, much more than the Southeast Asian markets. I will name it the new eastbound strategy. And my argument is based on three reasons. First, the new southbound policy didn't deliver. While its policy increased bilateral investments and tourists, the trade effect was not in line with the expectation. From the year 2015 to the first half of 2020 this year, Taiwan's export share to mainland China was not decreased, but increased for 3 percentage points, from 39.4% to 42.7%. Please read the table that I provided you. Great. On the contrary, during the same period, Taiwan's export share to the 18 countries of the new southbound policy was decreased for 3 percentage points, from 21.1% to exact 18%. So the policy effect is counterproductive. Apparently, new southbound policy markets are not big enough to compete with Chinese markets for Taiwan. Also, leaders of these countries may be concerned about Beijing before making new deals with Taipei. Secondly, the new eastbound strategy will try to switch the major trading direction from the Southeast Asia to the United States, particularly to the East Coast market, where live 80% of American consumers. The rationale is from the expansion of Panama Canal, accomplished in 2016. This is the only expansion after the canal was first established in 1940. The canal's capacity has been increased for 3 times, bringing a significant change to trans-Pacific shipping routes that connect the U.S. East Coast and the Asian countries, including Taiwan, of course. The pattern of global trade would be largely reshaped, and this change would be an opportunity of century for Taiwan to upgrade its trading routes with the U.S. East Coast markets, and even further, with the Western European markets as well. I do believe Taiwan cannot afford to miss this opportunity. Finally, how does this opportunity connect with the KMT today? There are 3 pillars for this new economic strategy. Number 1, Taiwan should redefine its global role in this booming eastbound trading route. Taiwan can play a crucial link as a deep processing value-added center, turning raw materials from Southeast Asia into high-quality products made in Taiwan, that is MIT, before going through the expanded Panama Canal and entering the U.S. East Coast markets. And number 2, for this new mission, the DPP government should adjust its new southbound policy, which has focused too much in local markets in Southeast Asia today. Instead, Taiwan should utilize the resources for doing high-quality manufacture at home and selling in the U.S. market. Number 3, here comes the KMT. In order to seize these eastbound trading opportunities, Taiwan should resume the liberalization reform that the KMT government proposed between 2013 and 2016, named Free Economic Pilot Zone Program, 自由经济示范区. I believe only can this program facilitate Taiwan a greater economic integration in the Pacific region and the U.S. economy. Also, only can this program upgrade Kaohsiung ports and Taipei ports so that they can accommodate neo-Panamax ships and really take advantage from the expanded Panama Canal. Again, my point here today is simple. Only can the U.S. market replace Chinese market for Chinese exports. So I'll stop here and welcome your questions in the Q&A. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Legislator Chen. And I think this panel very much all agree on the necessity and timing of U.S. and Taiwan forming a FTA. And this has been a very long-awaited solution for U.S. and Taiwan. But what are some of the obstacles that we are facing in terms of signing the FTA? And I think many of our panelists actually addressed the opportunities. But I'd like to get deeper into how to make it happen and what are some of the potential things or roadblocks we need to move in order to make the FTA a reality. So I'd like to begin by asking Mr. Anthony Kim. It seems that you have long observed this FTA potential formation. So can you give us some insights into some of the potential routes that we can go into in terms of the formation of FTA?
Absolutely, Jason. I want to say the following 3 quick points. If we have come this far, the only direction we want to go is continuing to move forward and upward. So there's no way we can go back to whatever years and then try to undo what we have achieved. We don't want that. We want to make greater things happen together. And number 2, it's not an easy, linear process in terms of getting an FTA done. We have to be realistic. We have to be strategic. Again, I don't think we should get into our misperceived trap. We are not here about to sign any FTA. We are here, we're eager to start the process once again. So where we should put our practical milestones, I think that's very important. So our aim, our goal here is how to really start the process of negotiating and institutionalizing this trade agreement between 2 like-minded willing partners. Number 3, as I mentioned, as we're about to wrap up the summer season, we are about to start a political season. So a lot of moving pieces here and there, but I think that it can be a unique opportunity, a unique chance to inject greater momentum to really start this long-awaited free trade agreement, bilateral trade and investment agreement between the United States and Taiwan. So I do not have all the necessary information or ingredients. My sense here in Washington is, once again, I think we're getting there. We're getting there. Again, it's a step-by-step process. It's not like, something magic happened, overnight and boom, we have this FTA. This is a process. This is a process that Taiwan has to take care of. This is a process that Washington, United States, has to take care of. But my sense, my hunch is, I think we're getting there. I think that this is not really like a completely out of the question or out of the table. We are about to get into a new chapter as we get into these very strategic opportunities.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kim. Leo, you have something to comment?
Yeah, I mean, as the past chairman of AmCham, I know that the American Chamber in Taipei has always been very pro-foreign trade agreement, and the reason is we believe it's good for our members. It just opens up a lot of opportunities. In the past, the issue has always been the pork and beef issue, which AmCham has always said is a red herring. How much U.S. pork really gets sold here? It's not that significant. It's just a political issue on both sides. On the Taiwanese side, the farmers always have a lot of power. They have a good voice with the government, and they made a big issue of it. And also the health groups have said, well, ractopamine is a big issue here, when in fact it could be handled quite easily by saying, this beef has this pork has ractopamine, this beef has ractopamine, don't use it, this one doesn't. On the U.S. side, there was always a feeling that Taiwan had backed down from an agreement. They had agreed in the past administration to go through an FTA process and allow pork and beef into U.S. pork and beef into Taiwan, and then they never went through with it. So there was a feeling on the U.S. side that Taiwan had kind of backpedaled. What I want to say now is, last night we had a Xin In Fan with President Tsai, which is the AmCham's signature event. In her speech, there was no mention of pork and beef. There was not a joke about it. There was nothing. That's highly unusual to me. So I just want to echo what Mr. Kim says. I really believe that there are some serious discussions going on. I'm not privy to it, but I believe things are moving in the direction quite quickly. Otherwise, there has always been that kind of joke or kind of comments about this going on. I think from the U.S. government's perspective and from Taiwan government perspective, there is a very strong desire to get this agreement concluded, and I believe it and I hope that it will be coming soon.
Well said, Leo, but I want to echo your points as well as some footnotes I want to offer, because, again, there's no question that Washington, Taiwan, United States, we want to get things started. There's no question about it, but we don't have 3 opportunities, or even we don't have 2 opportunities. We probably have a single opportunity to get things started. And when we first talked about U.S.-Taiwan, Taiwan-U.S. FTA, we didn't have iPhone. We didn't have iPhone. We didn't have iPad. It was a different word. And today, the economic environment is quite different from those days we began to start talking about U.S.-Taiwan FTA. So all I'm saying is that I think things can change, and things will change, and I think the like-minded moving parts, we are trying to paint a whole frame that has been forced onto us. So I remain optimistic about the process we're going to begin.
Yes, Legislator Chen.
Yes, may I follow up with a question? From my perspective, I saw a strong link in terms of security and the political link in past few years, but it's didn't expand the economic side. And I feel that there is a inconsistency within the Taiwan policy of the United States, that the USTR doesn't really see Taiwan as a strategic partnership. So is it possible that we can see a closer link in the policy logic between the USTR and the State Department and Pentagon? May I ask this question to U.S. friends?
I think that's an excellent question, and very important question too. In terms of trade agreement, yes, USTR is the driving force because they are the one who will have to actually sit down and negotiate. But when Washington decides to pursue an agreement, trade agreement with a partner, that decision happens to be made through multiple agency cooperation and coordination. And in this case, where we are in, U.S.-Taiwan's case, it's far more than just simple trade equation. This is really very big economic diplomacy equation, geopolitical strategic equation. As State Department and National Security Council have been highlighting, Taiwan is an important partner in America's Indo-Pacific vision. So there are many evolving, moving pieces, but they are not completely on the same page at this juncture, perhaps. But I think that's the beauty of this kind of policy discussion. And NGO, think tanks, and legislators like you, we have to remind people in Washington as well as Taipei, hey guys, really, this is an important next level of elevating and upgrading U.S.-Taiwan relationship. I think we should voice out our strong desire and willingness to support this vision we've been pursuing. So, once again, despite the lingering differences, despite the lingering bottlenecks, I remain positive because the only direction we're going to take is upward and forward. And that's very important because you pointed out earlier in your remarks, Taiwan needs a greater liberalization. Great, I agree. But U.S.-Taiwan FTA can be one of the mechanisms that can expedite and facilitate the internal upgrade process for Taiwan. So I really see this process very much a strategic, mutually beneficial process.
I totally agree. USTR are the executors of the trade agreement, and they have a queue and they have limited bandwidth. Taiwan is now the 9th largest trading partner of the U.S., up from the 11th over the last year and a half or so. So we're making progress. But what makes Taiwan more important than an FTA with Japan, you might ask yourself? That depends on the strategic importance of it. So when State Department says, do it to USTR, they will do it. So the queue is set not by USTR, it's set by other intergovernmental departments in an agreement. But as I said before, I'm optimistic that we'll get it done. I think you'll agree with that.
And as we explore further deep into this issue, I think FTA is really a bipartisan issue. It's not a topic or a policy that one party supports, the other party opposes. And KMT is here to support a policy that is beneficial to people of Taiwan and to the prosperity of Taiwan's economy. And our foundation, National Policy Foundation, serves as a think tank to provide policy support and to make sure that everything that's negotiated on the table or in due process can be fully and soundly thought of. So next, maybe perhaps I can have Dr. Lin and the next our vice chair to discuss what role our think tank can play or some of your observations from your past work as an NDC minister. Thank you, Dr. Lin.
Okay, I'd like to put a few more words as my comments. I agree with Leo that pork issue is important in terms of political point of view. If you look among the total amount of import from U.S. to Taiwan, the total amount of pork is very small. So it's comparing to other commodities. So it's a pure political issue, especially for the ruling party, because they against when we try to release the import of beef a couple of years ago. So I think President Tsai have to work harder, to solve the pork issue first. But as an economy myself, I think we have much work to do to liberalize Taiwan's domestic, just like Anthony just mentioned that. Sign FTA is a process. So we have lots of fields, especially in domestic issues. We have to deregularize a lot of sectors in Taiwan, especially on service industry, like banking industry and medical industry, lawyer, and even education. We have lots of domestic regulation, so we have to legalize ourselves. I mean, in a faster process. Otherwise, even we begin to talk with U.S. and domestically, we are still going to face a lot of obstacles. So our government should work harder, not just mention that we like to sign FTA with U.S. We have to liberalize ourselves as quickly as possible. Yes.
Vice Chair.
Well, okay. I don't know if you guys actually watch movie. If you guys do, there is a new Korean movie called Steel Rain currently showing in Taiwan. I strongly recommend that you guys go watch the movie. Not only that this is highly entertaining, but it also depicts the difficult situation that Korea is facing, where you're talking about being stuck in two superpowers and also facing the hostility from the north and potentially from Japan. And that's almost the same as Taiwan. Like, we're stuck in two superpowers, which one of them is our largest trading partner, which being China and Hong Kong, and the other one is the second largest. So having said that, we're always trying to, as KMT, we're always trying to rebalance our position with both superpowers, number one and number two, because this has something to do with our livelihood. In the past, a lot of people say, the KMT or the Republic of China government during the KMT time were too close to China. But that's not the reality. The reality is China, mainland China, has signed some sort of a quasi FTA agreement called the ECFA with Taiwan that actually facilitates a lot of trade with Taiwan. So at the end of the day, a man has to support himself and the family. So this kind of arrangement between mainland China and Taiwan does help Taiwan in many aspects, especially it helps a lot of the agricultural and some other industries. So this, if we want to restore this balance, then I guess the FTA agreement with the United States becomes a very vital part to restore that, to reach that equilibrium. And then as a consumer, personally as a consumer, look, I'm all for American beef. Nothing's better than a juicy American steak for me. Peter Luger, the steakhouse, sometimes even come up in my dreams. All right. However, I got to be honest with you. U.S. pork, as a consumer, it's just not very tasty for me. Seriously. So what I'm trying to say is that these are issues. Yes, definitely issues. But these are not, to me, I don't think these are issues so serious that it should stop or deter the progress for such an FTA. Because you're talking about many different opportunities currently, between Taiwan and the United States. For example, I'm talking about biotech. We're talking about something, we talk about potential financial deregulation and liberalization in the market. You're talking about many different other things that should surpass all these issues and then become a cornerstone and become the basis for such a trade agreement. I think this is definitely going to be beneficial for both sides, for both Taiwan and United States. And I guess at the end, I have to say, the Pacific is big enough, from my view, to accommodate both the mainland China and the U.S. and other countries. Unlike the Mediterranean, where the Carthage cannot coexist with Rome. So in that case, I really hope that we can be working together with all different partners, and because peace, maintaining peace, for us is our ultimate goal and the most important goal that we're trying to achieve. And that's just my comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Vice Chair. We have about a little more than 10 minutes left, but I'd like to get comments from each of you. I would like to ask a question that's related to U.S. election and how, it's hard to predict the results, and we are not here to be political pundits, but I just like to get your senses on the potential U.S. election results affecting economic policy and whether or not a change of government or a second term of Trump administration would accelerate the FTA process or some of the negotiation terms on the table. Why don't we start with Kirk? You can share us your views on from the high-tech sector, or what are some of your predictions and concerns in this regard?
Sure. Well, I'm in Arizona right now. Used to be a red state, which means Republican, but this year is a swing state now. Things are very unusual, very uncertain these days, because two extremes. People, have a lot of concerns on economy, but also on COVID. But I think no matter who wins, it's quite clear that U.S. is getting a little worried about China's dominance, either from military or intellectual property or 5G, for example. So I do think that going forward, doesn't matter who wins, U.S. would view China as a competitor, which means that brings opportunity to Taiwan. If you look from tech perspective, 90% of iPhones are made in China. If U.S. can block Huawei, China can easily block iPhone coming out of China. So Apple just passed $2 trillion market cap, would not be very happy. So there are a lot of U.S. tech companies are really worried that if China block production from China, there are no products sold in the U.S. So that's why I think that no matter who wins, that U.S. really need to work closely with Taiwan, such as FTA, to have technology manufactured in U.S. to provide the U.S. market. You can see clearly that besides Foxconn, U.S. is the one that asked TSMC to come to Phoenix, not because cost reasons, not because adding jobs, but because access to technology, because national security. So bottom line, I will see more cooperation. Doesn't matter who wins, because Taiwan provides reliable technology, very good partners, and share of intellectual property without worrying about potential stolen technology in China.
Well, thank you, Kirk. What about you, Anthony? What are your views?
Well, I just say this. Number one, again, watch what's going to happen in September and October. I think it will be a very much entertaining season in terms of really the discussion-wise and dynamic. But more importantly, I think it will be a bit foolish to wish we can go back to let's say, 2016 years. I think we won't be able to go back to those days. This is a completely a new environment. And this environment will evolve as we get into 21, 22. So if there's any wishful thinking in terms of, we'll go back to those old good days, I think that's not a wise kind of thinking. And when you think about Washington, I want you to use what I call 3 Ps, a PPP, basically here in Washington, perhaps in Taipei too, or any other cities. We have a politics, policies, and people. I mean, politics is a function of people and policy. So what you really need to watch and what you really have to kind of pay attention to is policy discussions among people, and you have to have your own filtering process, because we do not want to get into self-delusion. We don't want to get into too wishful thinking. We don't want to get into too pessimistic doom and gloom scenario. Always, we'll have to find somewhere in between how we take that temperature. I think that's the beauty of this kind of dynamic, election, democracy, and then, every season we go through this. So I think you will learn a lot about the United States. You will get to know more about your country, Taiwan, too. And I think a lot of things really you will have to digest and consume, but no question, it will be very dynamic, entertaining season. Now, if I may I just add one more thing to the comment made by your Vice President, Mr. Steve Lin. I agree, this is really an important sort of geostrategic kind of moment. But I really think that we shouldn't view FTA as a final product. This is, once again, just one of the products we're going to manufacture together. And FTA is not a final, ultimate product of U.S.-Taiwan relationship.
Of course.
I completely agree. This playground we are in the Pacific is big enough, large enough. We can make fine balance between two competing forces and many other evolving forces. Forget, this is always a process, not a final product. And one question I have, at least from my mind, is that I think you're going to go through this September 30 kind of a deadline. Not deadline, but as I understand, since you mentioned, Mr. Steve Lin, the 10-year-old ECFA, Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement, will be expired in September. And I think Taiwan, one way or another, I'm sure you will have some discussions on the fate of it. Yes. What should be the next? I think that should be an important debate point to follow.
Yeah. Vice Chair, would you like to just...
Actually, we're going to have a seminar on the ECFA and going forward, what is going to affect, whether it's going to last or be discontinued. I guess on this subject matter, maybe we can engage Steve to talk about that, because he's actually in the process of organizing this seminar. Maybe he can give you more ideas about what's going on from our view.
Yeah. So we would like to invite Dr. Steve Lin Tuja 老师 who's also a former NDC minister who I think was involved in the negotiation of ECFA deal, and to give final remarks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me speak a few words on ECFA. ECFA is very important for Taiwan. During the past 10 years, the product in early harvest plant, the growth rate almost double than the other product not included in ECFA. So it means that when we reduce tariff, it could help a lot for Taiwan export to mainland China. And China is the #1 trade partner. We export 40% of total product there. So there's no doubt that in our point of view, we totally support that. We hope that ECFA could be continuous after next month. Okay. Let me make a few words as final words. Influenced by the trade war between the U.S. and China, and also by the COVID-19, there's a significant reshuffle of production chain from mainland China to other East Asian countries. With a great technology industry, Taiwan could play a strategic partner for the U.S. and also could increase the bilateral economic relation with the U.S. So we not only want to increase our trade with the United States, because at the same time we could also reduce Taiwan's trade dependence with mainland China. So in the future, Taiwan should also increase cooperation with U.S. in technology and other important industry, so that those industries in Taiwan could improve their competitiveness in the long run. I also agree with Leo that Taiwan should form a sovereignty fund. When I was in National Development Council, we have a National Development Fund. In that fund, we own 6% of share of TSMC. Now the total value is around $20 billion US. So we could easily transfer that to the sovereignty fund to have no problems. Because it helps on both financial and the diplomacy reason. Anyway, I'm very happy that we all agree that it is the best moment now for Taiwan and U.S. to increase economic cooperation, including sign FTA and other technology cooperation. I'm really looking forward to see it in the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lin. Just wanted to, before we conclude, Charles, Legislator Chen, you have anything to add for last moment at all?
No, I just enjoy all the discussion.
Okay, very good. I see you are very comfortable in the quarantine hotel. Yeah.
Nice here.
So I'm aware of everyone's time. So on behalf of MPF, along with our Vice Chair, Dr. Lin, Leo, we'd like to thank both Anthony Kim and Kirk Young for joining us online. And I know it's getting late in your time zone. And I'm also very happy to hear that all of us here are working together to construct a positive outcome of a U.S.-Taiwan relationships and to foster stronger and closer economic development and ties in various ways. And I want to echo Anthony's points that we should put people, policy, and politics in these three things together and really making it a centerpiece of everything that we concern. FTA shouldn't be a final outcome. It's a process to really start a long and enduring partnership between U.S. and Taiwan. And we, KMT and MPF, are here to support anything that fosters stronger prosperity and peace for Taiwan and for the globe. So thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you soon online or in Taiwan. Thank you.
Look forward to see you guys in Taipei.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
You guys take care.
I look forward to welcoming you to the Heritage Foundation. So the day will come, we'll get together in person.
Thank you.
And come over whenever you have the chance. All right?
We'll do it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank- Take care, Kurt.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Enjoy yourself, everyone.